It is May the 31st, Saturday, 1932 hours. You're watching Tech News, my little show. So, got a bit of a window of opportunity here that I can try and do something. I'm having a bit of a difficulty with some of my online friends. Do with you is to have a short little autobiographical video clip. And the thing is, when I started Blogger, after I started Blogger, they introduced an option to put videos up, and this is sort of where that started for me. And the idea is to just do a short little video about what you're all about, or what your blog is all about. And it's just a way of incorporating maybe more literary or more photographic or illustrative, in my case, blogging, to the whole video web community. Let me just turn my monitor. And, well, I guess you can see me. Anyways, so here it goes. So one of the ways I sort of explain it is with an old expression. Have you ever heard the expression, they must have dropped him on his head when he was a kid, right? Well, that really applies to me, doesn't it? But actually it does, because I actually did fall on my crown and receive a bad injury when I was a toddler. And it was the only time I ever got stitches, one of the few times I've actually been to the hospital. And what happened after that is what I now know of as chronic pain. I had permanent headaches continuously every day since then. And that went basically untreated. And I've got this all written down here because, you know, me talking about me, I guess I'll go on forever. When I was 20 and I became a man, I started to treat myself instead. I sort of gave the doctors the boot. Three things led me to diagnose myself. I had a minor speech impediment, which is called a TH lisp. I couldn't say the letter S. I had consistent minor crippling memory loss, very chronic. Every one of my report cards had Daydreamer and forgets things on it. And something called pseudoanorexia, which is not a nervous or mental condition, but a physical condition. I'll get into that in just a sec. That is a result of a chronic loss of appetite. Now, with my paging back through my life when I was 20, I'm 38 now, came other interesting points that started popping up. I had acute 20/20 vision. I had not like great, superhero type of hearing. And I did have an injury. Me and my sister got injured from a doctor who was trying to clean our ear canals. But I do have a fairly acute hearing for things. More of a responsiveness, acute sensitivity to touch of any sort, and a very, very acute sense of taste. This is where my appetite problems came from. But what I started doing, and it took me a few years, to go through my life, what I started noticing is that it was all leading back to the brain. And these are often, a lot of these are signs of classic brain trauma. Senses, when you have trauma to the head, we often think you go blind or you go deaf, but it can also go in the other direction, because neurons, which are one of the few cells in our body that don't die and are rejuvenated, can also go in the other direction and become more acute, if you will. Neurons often don't die, they actually become dormant. But also classic brain trauma, memory loss, crippled speech, And, you know, my friends sometimes, one friend even recently remarked that I sometimes sound like I've just received a concussion. He was worried about me. Um, that's normal for me, okay? None of this is actually a problem for me as a man because it's who I am. The problem is I'm never able to fully enter society because I have to deal with long-term chronic pain. And for example, and I won't get into it, but I'm excellent as a laborer, but I'm terrible at work. So I'm terrible at a 9 to 5 job, but if you give me 60 hours of labor, I'll do it before everyone else. And what that really means in our society today is that I can't participate. So today, I've fought off quite successfully a lot of that pain, and I share some of that in my videos. Um, but I hope I don't go too long here. After several years of acetaminophen therapy, I developed migraines, which are not related to my acetaminophen. I've since gone back on acetaminophen as part of a multi-therapy. So that's the bad. That's the whole bad part of my life. The good part of my life is that when I was 4 years old, the trauma was so dramatic, and I hid all of my problems from all of the adults around me. I actually became what I later came to understand, a shaman. So I became a shaman at a very young age, which is very unusual, but not by any means outside of the tradition. And so in spending a lot of time with my peers playing without me, you know, they would play their games. I basically sat under a tree and planned out my life. And one area that came up for me that I had problems with was marriage, and another was post-secondary education. I sort of took both of those to the one person in the entire world that I could take those to, and that was my grandmother. And I came to the conclusions that I would have to plan dying without having been married, and not receiving a post-secondary education, even though I had the choice to. Okay, that's a very difficult decision for me to make. Remember, all my ancestors come out of poverty, so post-secondary education, well, of course, if you can get one, it's only obvious that you should go for it. After that, I immediately got into a lot of my work of forming companies. My first company was a software company dedicated to the merging of video and computers, and that was back when I was about 11 or 12 years old, which would be around 84, well, before 1984. Immediately after that, I became entrenched as a musical performer for many years until I was 20, and I went on my dream journey and became a man. And you can look up dream journeys. I think that's probably something you could find on the internet. After that, I immediately got into healing through visual art and became an illustrator. And that lasted for several years, and then several years as an animator. And got into, after getting into visual art, curing my pain, of course, and developing 3D Ion, which is my corporation, much later on, now into my 30s, okay. So where I'm at now is I've written a technology trilogy about writing and science fiction and politics and all of that sort of thing. I had what I would consider a very successful podcast with probably about 150 hours of podcasting. I wrote 2 books in the form of a blog, and more recent years, I've been doing the iVlog show and Techno here with video.